Light looks good.
Who?
You, Donna, yours.
Oh, thank you. Oh, the light's working. Oh, good.
It looks great. It looks very nice. Yeah, I'm not using my fancy one today that my son gave me, but because sometimes it just gets too bright in my
Commissioner,
face.
you're free to proceed.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. We will start the meeting of the Streets and Transportation Committee.
People are coming and going.
I'm sorry,
What?
people are what?
He said coming and going. Like David.
David is not there.
David's not in this picture.
David, are you there? I'm about to come to do roll call. I don't know if he's frozen or what. We'll go ahead and do roll call and hopefully he'll get back online here. I don't know what I'm hearing, but okay. All right. I'll do roll call now. John Gauger.
Here.
Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Donna Mabry.
Here.
Bruce Kaufman.
Here, and I need to say I'm getting a new roof. There's a lot of noise here, so
Is anybody there?
I'm gonna unmute. I'm gonna mute myself most of the time.
Okay, thank you. David Mann was here. His picture's on the screen, sort of. Hopefully David will be in touch with us soon. Dan Miller, not here. Okay, and we have guests attending today, Gary Glass, Lydia Hastings, and Walter Brittingham. I sent minutes to everyone. I didn't get any changes. I got one from Donna. I made that change and sent back out. So is there anything else that respond to? No?
They look good. They look good to me. Thank you for putting them together so quickly.
You're welcome. I try to do it while it's fresh in my head. Doesn't always happen. Okay, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Did everyone see the correspondence from Suzanne Good?
Yes.
Yes.
We will, when we get to the LED lighting at the circle, we'll talk, we can, talk a little bit more about that. So what I want to do is, there were, since we only have an hour, as you know, we couldn't get through everything that I wanted to last week, which not surprising, but I do want to continue on with the things from the agenda from last year. There was issues on about the speed bump on Lake Drive. Does anyone want to talk to me about that one? I don't know where that came from the previous agenda.
I don't remember it.
Me neither.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all.
Okay. Well, we'll ask David when he gets back. I assume he's going to try to rejoin at some point. Then there was a traffic circle issues, and we're going to talk about that when we get back to the LED lighting at the circle, because they're obviously they're related. So we'll talk about those. Cycling gateways in City of Rehoboth Beach. We talked a little bit about that with the city bike loop. In general, I know that we were hoping that, and I assigned it to myself to Google to be able to pull up a map, and I haven't been able to do anything on that presently. Does anyone want to talk about other issues? Talking about the gateways. Hi, David, you're back. And you're on mute. David, you're on mute.
Got it.
All right. Welcome back.
Okay.
We're talking about the cycling gateways to Rehoboth Beach. Anyone want to make comments on that?
Yes, I I can speak to that. I was talking to David last year, I guess, about the fact that there's, by my count, 5 bicycle entrance points to the city, coming in from Dewey by Silver Lake, State Road, Rehoboth Avenue, and then the 2 trails. All of them are marked and rideable and inviting to bicyclists until you enter the town and the bicycles are on their own. It's a problem that needs to be addressed if we want to encourage cycling in the city. So for example, Rehoboth Avenue, there's several bike lanes out on Route 1 feeding into Rehoboth Avenue. It's a signed bike lane all the way to the bridge. When you cross the bridge, nothing. The two trails come into Rehoboth and you're on your own. No bike lanes, no sharrows, no anything. The 2012 study actually tackled that. They recommended sharrows on 2nd Street and various other solutions, but nothing's been done. And now it's compounded by this thing that DelDOT is doing, putting bikes up on the sidewalk, coming down across the bridge and dumping cyclists onto the circle, the park. But my history with this goes way back. DelDOT had a public forum a couple of years ago at City Hall where they were talking about this bike lane coming down the sidewalk. And I asked the engineer, do you have data on where these bicycles are going when they come down? Where are they going? What's their destination? They had no data. And I said, well, I'm telling you, they're coming down from Lewis to come to Rehoboth, not to go back up to Lewis. They need to get out into Rehoboth Avenue somehow, safely. So, and the example I keep using, and I said, here's the problem you need to solve. A cyclist is riding down from Lewis in order to go to lunch at Dogfish Head. How are you going to do that? Solve that problem. And the engineer looked at me like I had 2 heads. What is this guy talking about? So anyway, that's my issue with the 5 entrances into the city. How does a cyclist get to a meaningful destination? How do they get to a restaurant? How do they get to the band shell? The list goes on.
2 questions that I have of you. You said that the 2012 had some report had some questions, or the study had, I'm sorry, had some ideas on how to approach that. And do you think implementing what's in that report would take care of the problem?
Yes, partially. Back then, these trails from Lewis weren't really part of it, I don't think. Gordon's Pond definitely didn't exist.
Right.
But I actually would like to see it go a little further than that report.
Okay. Let me, there's one key thing, I'm sorry to interrupt, but one key thing that I remember from my time back on that, when we did that report, was we were trying to pull people off of Rehoboth Avenue. Now, I realize there are destinations on Rehoboth Avenue, but the key was we were trying to do safe routes into the city. And I think we made a supposition that people were either going to the beach or one second, I don't want to run out of power. People were going to the beach, or they were going to, well, you're right, the trail didn't exist then, but it was the idea, which is why we did all of these bicycle racks and bicycle parking areas at street ends in most of the places. So we have that. It's not ideal. We have some signs that say, bike to the beach. So there were these blue signs, and some of them, I think they're all still up actually, but I don't think that they're being used the way we had hoped. The first, as I remember, using that map, when you came across the bridge, you were to make a right on Canal Street.
Yes.
That was to take you to the beach on the south side of the city. The other was much more difficult in terms of, people would go across on the sidewalk and then go through Grove Park. And then either we suggested, as I remember, is to stay off of Columbia because it wasn't really safe because it was so narrow, and go to Henlopen. So that's what I remember, and that's what I believe is in the report. Now, as far as trying to do something in terms of sharing the Rehoboth Avenue with bicyclists, I think is a really thorny issue. So I'm just relating to you what I remember the committee trying to do in terms of pushing people off of the avenue and having them park elsewhere, their bicycles, or perhaps coming on a side street then to park their bikes at Second Avenue or wherever on, but basically keep bicycles off of the avenue. So I don't know, does anybody, since that was 2012, it's been 8 years, anybody kind of comments or thoughts about what happened in the past 8 years to either try to promote something different?
More and more cyclists riding up and down Rehoboth Avenue, more and more cyclists on the sidewalks, and the ability to get people coming across the bridge to turn on a Canal Street is somewhat successful, has been somewhat successful. But for every person that turns right on Canal coming in on Rehoboth Avenue, 2 people go straight, or 3 people, or 4.
Sure.
And generally the people that are on Rehoboth Avenue are the inexperienced cyclists, the occasional cyclists, and the veterans, the people that are experienced, know where to go. The tourists that are new to this don't, and they're the ones that are most at risk. So what Bruce didn't mention, I don't think, is that there's enough width on Rehoboth Avenue to get a bike lane all the way up to 2nd Street and still have Del spec width for the motorists. So as I've said before, if we can't get Google Maps to put people on a Canal Street, and we can't get Google Maps to run people behind the museum, and we can't get Surf Avenue is even worse. That gateway is even worse.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that one too later.
We've got a problem that we can't control, and it gets worse every summer.
Right.
And I think we have to think about it. People who are coming, the cyclists, as I bike into a town, I want to go downtown and explore and check it out. I'm ready for a break. Like when I go to Lewis, I want to go into the heart of Lewis. I think we have to think of it from the cyclists. It's not just getting them off Rehoboth Avenue. Of course, they want to come downtown. And I think, and we ought to be prepared for that. And I think now we did work on the entrance coming from Gordon's Pond, where at that intersection with Surf and Henlopen, we had it marked with a sign directing downtown or directing to Lewis, I guess, to give people a little bit of some direction. If they want to go around town, they go one way. If they want to go downtown, they go this way. So a little bit of that was done on that entryway.
And that little kiosk got removed with the new merge sign project.
Did it? Okay. But is there
I
merge
think I
signage
saw
in that
other-
same?
I think I saw some signs more recently with there were placards. Not that you mean the white kiosk?
The white
That
kiosk is
post?
removed. It got the sign, little kiosk post got removed. It got replaced by signs, and turn left on Surf and deal with all the cars.
Well, I think it's where the destinations need to be marked and where people want to go.
It's well marked. The street's not safe.
Well, we need to improve the street there and surf.
Yeah, we'll talk. We're going to talk about that. That is top of the list. In fact, I mean, I'll say now we I've asked that be put on the commissioner's agenda for the workshop because and I want to discuss this a little further, and we'll do that when we get to it. But you just should know that it should be on our agenda for the commissioners' next workshop in February. Excuse me. So going back to this issue of the avenue, which is the one that coming in across the bridge, Bruce, you suggested, I believe it was you suggested there's room on that street for a bike lane. And where
Yes.
would that be?
I took my tape measure out a couple months ago. The bike lane that DelDOT has coming into the bridge, if you continue that on the other side, the lane is wide enough. It's as wide as the outside of town. So my logic says if there's room for a bike lane up by Church Street and all the way down to the bridge, there's room for one on the other side of the bridge around the circle. And that can continue as far as possible before parking. Once parking arrives,
yeah.
I think a more practical solution is Sharrows in the right lane, all the way down to Boardwalk. To tell bicycles, if you're riding on Rehoboth Avenue, use the right lane. And this is important personally because I teach bike safety to the foreign students, and not last year because we didn't have any, but the year before it was around 300 foreign students that listened to me talk about bike safety. And I tell them how to ride on Rehoboth Avenue, how to ride around the circle. I tell them how to get off of Route 1 safe. I do all this, but then when I ride my own bike, I ride across the bridge and I say, oh my goodness, we have all of these people riding on Rehoboth Avenue. They need a little more help. So
are you suggesting that Sharrows are the answer on the avenue?
Possibly, yes. If you go to Bethany, Garfield Avenue is very similar structure to Rehoboth. They also have parking. They have 2 lanes of traffic. They have a bike lane on the right side of the right lane, right along the parked cars.
Going west? Are you talking about going into Bethany or 26?
Going into downtown Bethany on Garfield, they have,
oh, okay.
They have a bike lane right up against the parked cars.
How did they park? Excuse me, Bruce. How do they park the cars there on Garfield? Parallel to the curb or front end? Because that's you know, on Rehoboth Avenue, it's front end.
But Rehoboth Avenue and Garfield have a little bit of both. There's blocks where they're parallel, there's blocks where they're nose in, just like us. In any event, that bike lane in Bethany, I personally think is dangerous. You're riding right up, you're telling cyclists, here's your lane, but then, oh, by the way, car doors are gonna open, or somebody's gonna put their car in reverse and back into it. It's just,
Yeah.
And I have to, I teach bike safety in Bethany too. And I keep asking DelDOT, tell me what I should say about that bike lane on Garfield, because I don't know what to say.
Right.
I personally don't use it. Okay. Well, I would hate to see us recommend trying to squeeze a bike lane in along the parked cars. I don't think
I agree with that. And I think
Okay,
it's
yeah,
dangerous.
good.
And we've talked about that in terms of Surf Avenue, and we talk about that some more. So, you know, we're not going to eliminate the parked cars on the avenue for sure. I think you're right. I think sharrows are about the only solution that we have, unless somebody else has another idea. And if we certainly doing something like that, in my mind anyway, doing something like sharrows is better than doing nothing at this point.
I agree.
I
Mhm.
agree.
Yep, same here.
So I see that Chief Banks is on the line, or on the Zoom call. Chief, can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
So you've heard a little bit, I heard the conversation, I think.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, I agree. I don't like the idea of having a designated bike lane behind vehicles on Rehoboth Avenue with cars trying to back out. I think there's just too much going on. We have box trucks, we have big trucks making deliveries, stopping on the avenue, and you already have a visual issue. And you're already looking out for people walking behind cars and all that already. So I would not recommend it. I think Sharrows is a good idea. I will remind the committee that from coming in town to Second Block is controlled by DelDOT and all. So I don't think they would have an issue, but anything we put on the roadway would need to be run through them to make sure that's okay. Rehoboth, City of Rehoboth actually maintains from Second Block up to the boardwalk. So I just want to mention that.
Thank you. So Bruce, I think you were suggesting from the bicycle safety point of view with sharrows that you would say, you should always tell your, the people you talk to about bike safety is to use the right lane. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So do we have a consensus here that we should propose to the city commissioners that we want to move forward with talking to DelDOT about putting sharrows on Rehoboth Avenue up to Second Street and ask the city to do the same?
That'd be good.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes to that?
Yes.
Yes, I do thrilled.
Okay, Chief, are you supportive of this as well then?
Yes, as long as DelDOT's notified and they don't have any issues and all. So yes.
Okay. Okay, I think this is really important, and the sooner we can do it, the better. It also comes right into line with this. I'm going to skip over the bike box for a minute and talk about the painting, the crosswalk painting. I mean, we'd start doing this, we'll have them do everything all at once. And I know that Donna was a proponent of yellow for crosswalks, and I think that Chief, you were going to get back to us on some of these issues of the schedule of painting as well as color.
Yes. I did look into that ad, and I spoke with City Manager Sharon Lynn and Superintendent Kevin Williams back right after our meeting on. So I actually spoke with them on the 8th of January about this, and as far as the scheduling, it looks like each spring, they couldn't really narrow it down because each spring they're going to go ahead and assess what needs to be done, because it's not just painting the crosswalks, retouching those up. That's actually a thermal heat type of paint. So it has to be taken up with heat and then replaced down. So each year before the spring, we have a commitment that that Bill Maffei as well as Kevin Williams' crew will go out and check it out and see what's needed on Rehoboth Avenue. I know, so that's kind of best way they could look at it. They don't know when exactly something would be replaced. They would have to assess it. The ones that got resurfaced last year, it was actually an outside company that was contracted to come in to do that, because they tried, if you may have been around, they tried several times to take the heat, they get it up, and then they tried just painting it. Well, within a day with the tires, it had wore back down. So it is a thermal paint that has to a specialty. It has to be ordered, and usually it's depending on the timing and all, that's contracted with the city to have somebody come in and do that. So that they couldn't narrow it down to exact time, except to say when it warms up in spring, they will sit there and monitor that. And they do try to put that money in the budget to, in case any of it needs to be replaced. The commitment is more that they'll definitely look at it each year versus in the past years that maybe it just went to, it got really bad. So now they're going to keep up with it. As far as painting yellow on the outside of that, again, I went to Bill from the sign shop. He's kind of the city's expert, as well as I looked at the uniform traffic code book, and we cannot see legally that we can do that. There's nowhere, I guess it doesn't say you can't do it specifically, but it tells you about crosswalks, how they're designated, the color, and all that. So that we need to say that it needs to just be white, and we need to make sure maintenance is kept up versus putting the yellow on the outside. Again, we may be able to up to the first 2 blocks because that's ours, but then you get into the state, and we try to, since it is a main thoroughway, just like our state road in Columbia, we try to sit there and maintain a uniform traffic code. And I think that's probably our best bet to make sure we're following those guidelines.
Okay, so I think the bottom line here is we'll be going with white, but the more critical piece is to when these crosswalks will be painted and/or the thermal paint applied on the avenue. So I think that I need to make sure we get this in front of the commissioners. And the city manager, that perhaps
Well, I'd like to clarify.
Yes, go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify 2 things. Like when you talk about the thermal paint, you're talking about the white reflective paint that's on either side of the brick crosswalks. That's not the regular white paint on the regular crosswalks.
That's
They're
correct.
2 different kinds of paint currently. Okay,
Yes.
so, and like my recommendation, it didn't necessarily have to be white. I think we could use white paint beside the reflective paint to put more white painting around those brick crosswalks so that it's more prominent and more apparent that it is a crosswalk and is more consistent with the other crosswalks. So the white reflective paint on either side of the brick crosswalk, I don't think is sufficient. Even when they're painted, I don't think that's sufficient to let people know those are really crosswalks. If we just had a little white paint in addition to the reflective painting on both sides of the crosswalk, that would make it very obvious that this is indeed a crosswalk. And it wouldn't have to be as wide as the existing crosswalks. It could be a smaller zebra stripe, a 1.5 feet or something on either side, not necessarily 3 feet wide.
Do you want to address this from the point of view of the uniform traffic control?
Yeah, what I was going to say, it sounds to me like it's more making that strip wider. And if so, I think that when you bring the topic up to the with the fellow mayor and commissioners, is to recommend, if possible, to make it wider with the thermal stripe than normal. Because again, I think if we just put white paint, talking to Bill, talking to Kevin, within a day or 2, it's gone with black tire marks. It's just gone. It doesn't hold up, and that's why they go to this thermal. So I think it would probably mean making the strips wider on each side. Maybe that would help.
Okay.
Again, that's they're more the expertise in that, but that would make more sense to me, and I would agree. I think it would make it more obvious that there's something going on there, that it's not just decorative.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think there's consensus to move forward with trying to get something going with this, and to recommend to the city commissioners that the city manager direct Public Works to do the kinds of things that need to be done in terms of painting crosswalks and sharrows. Yes, John?
Yeah, I was really surprised last summer when I drove down the Forgotten Mile and the new Del Dot crosswalks there just jump right out at you.
Mhm.
So my question is, why didn't Del Dot want to do that in the city on the road that that they contain, that they were, they maintain?
I don't have the answer to that question, but what I will tell you is, I think that we've talked about this and it's been approved and it's funded. In fact,
Yeah.
I think there's going to be flashing lights at some of the crosswalks that are not at corners. So that's going to be helpful for some of the crosswalks on the avenue. So that's one thing. But John, I don't have an answer for that other than I know that the city, even though we've had permission to put down that thermal paint, which I suspect we will continue to do. And I don't know the solution that they have on that road. I don't know that it's necessarily the right solution for us based on what the chief is saying.
It really jumps out at you, and it goes right on into Dewey. Right through Dewey that you have those crosswalks.
Well, is the state using thermal paint there on Route 1 into Dewey? What kind of paint do they use? What kind of paint does the state use? Because that road gets a heck of a lot more traffic than Rehoboth Avenue. So whatever paint holds up there, you would think would hold up on Rehoboth Avenue.
It's thermal. I live down there.
Thermal too?
I watched them put it down. They put it down with huge parts of it was applied with a torch, a flamethrower.
Wow.
And it's, and I asked the DelDOT guys about it, and they implied to me that it's rather new, that that whole stretch along the Forgotten Mile, the orientation of the lines, the color of the lines, the substance, the heated decals and things, it's all new. I don't know if it's been well received. I don't know if DelDOT likes it and it's now going to be the normal, but I'm impressed.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
Yeah, Chief, is there something you can do to find out about that? If they're doing that on that road, is it possible that they could do something similar for us? In fact, then perhaps we won't have to pay for it.
Right. One thing we can always look at it, the areas that you're talking about, Bruce, I'd have to go look at it again. Does it have the brick across it?
Yes.
Okay, it does. All right.
But the brick looks different for some reason.
Okay.
It's a bright brick.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So Chief, will you get back to us on that? Also, I do think that we'll have another meeting in 2 weeks, but I want to make sure this is all done.
Yeah, I will reach out to someone and see if I can get an answer. Again, I don't know if the city, I'm sure, decided on the brick color. So that went with our brick outlays on the sidewalks and all that. So I'm not sure that, again, I want to speak for the state, and you never know till you ask, that they would want to change the brick up and pull it out to a different color. That I would say the city decided on that color. I may be wrong. I don't know. It's been Rehoboth Avenue. It's been quite some time since the streetscape, but I'm sure that we probably decided on that color.
Okay, well, obviously,
I'll check into it.
And again, I hate to do this. This is really, frustrating for me that we have such a short time to cover these things, and we could spend the whole hour talking about this. But we have to move on, and we know people have some marching orders here to find out some things. So I'd like to move on if that's okay with everyone else. And also, I've been remiss in terms of our guests here. What I'd like to ask them is, I believe, Lydia, your interest is it strictly on, let's see, the shuttle?
Yes, strictly just the shuttle, and our points on it are very brief. Basically, we understand the city is still contemplating a shuttle service in Rehoboth Beach. As you know, the Jolly Trolley has been around for decades. We have a lot of experience, a lot of just experience transporting a large number of people in and around Rehoboth Beach. So told we would just like to know if the city is interested in moving forward with a transportation system, whatever it may be. We want
Yeah.
to know what goals you may have. And we
Right. Lydia, so we're at the front end of this.
Yeah.
I may have to interrupt, but we're at the front end of this. And this, since we've not had a discussion yet with the transportation committee about the shuttle, you're right at the very beginning of where we are. So we haven't decided what we're going to do at all, or if we're going to do anything this year. So I hate to say stay tuned, but stay
No
tuned.
worries. That was, yeah, that was my main point is we want to still be involved in the conversation, obviously. I think we have a lot to give with our experience in this field. So just keep us posted.
Okay, when we get to that, so I hope you continue to come to our meetings. I think it's great to have you, and I appreciate it. Also, let me go to Gary Glass. Gary, did you have a specific topic that you wanted to address?
I just wanted to participate in the meeting, but I also wanted to talk about what Lydia just talked about is the shuttle. It seems like the shuttle has been talked about in years past. It's not a new topic. Suggestions have been made using Jolly Trolley. But,
right.
I don't know if we're talking about that subject now.
No, yeah, we're not going to talk about that right now. We're still trying to get through the agenda as we have it on our on the agenda. So I'll let you know. Again, I apologize, but you'll probably have to hang in there with us for some time. May probably not even the next meeting or two until we get there.
Yeah, but I have nothing to add about the bikes and the marking of the streets.
Okay, thank you. Walter Brittingham.
Thank you. Good morning. The answer to your question about the paint, it's latex paint. They can put glass beads in regular paint, and or they put glass beads on the top of the latex. The latex has to dry. The state takes care of it. The brick format that they used on Route 1 is actually a mat. It's almost like a piece of masonite. It's 3/16 or 1/4 of an inch. And they do it at night, and so they can close things down. They grind the roadway down so it won't excessively come above the grade of the roadway, and they lay it down, and then they take basically, which is a big heater, and they melt it down onto the roadway, and they roll it in. It's not new, it's just new out on the highway, and it is highly durable, and it's like a lot of kitchen counters or floor tile. The pattern goes down through, not just up on top, and it doesn't wear out very quickly. It works wonderfully. It has a long life. It's been tested, and you need to get somebody from DelDOT down here, one of the engineers that knows about it, not just send somebody that knows about it and tells you how it works. And as you are correct, probably DelDOT would do into 2nd Street if that's what you wanted.
Right. Thank you, Walter, for that. Chief, perhaps when you talk to the folks at DelDOT, if you think it'd be valuable, perhaps we could have them, talk to us if they're willing to talk to us about that possibility on 2nd Avenue at our next meeting. What do you think?
I definitely can ask, and if nothing else, I can get some contact information for you to be able to reach out to them and set up a time on the agenda. And also, I'm not speaking for the committee. However, I will reach out to them and see who is the main contact and who they would like to speak for.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So we will put that on our next agenda. Let's see. So the Surf Avenue bike lane. If we limit, well, what I think, and Susan, help me out with this. Proposing to the commissioners, and I think, we need everybody to weigh in here. There's a couple of things we could propose. One is eliminate parking on the side going north and put a bike lane there. The other thing that actually Mr. Brittingham had suggested is what needs to be done anyway. On the other side of the street, we have loose gravel once you are off the main roadway, and perhaps if that was paved, it could be used as a as a bike lane. The other option to explore, and I have no idea about this, but is there any reason why the land to the east of the road, could a bike lane boardwalk be built to go down to Deauville Beach? Now, how much that would cost, I'm clueless about that, but if we could perhaps get a proposal from someone to give us an idea of what it would be, if the commissioners think it's a good idea, and if it's even possible that we could use that land. Do you have an opinion about that, Susan?
I'm glad you brought up could we use that land? Because I don't know. And I was going to ask you if you thought that was something that DNREC had to be involved in.
And I don't know the answer to that. So I guess that requires further, investigation. But I'd like to know also what the other members of the, do you think that's a good solution? Or do you think we should just press on with the idea of eliminating the parking? This way we'd have the parking there, and, we're always, it's always hard for us to eliminate parking because, as it's.
The parking that we're talking about eliminating is non-direct revenue parking. It's permit parking.
Right.
And that permit parking could be moved to Deauville Beach. So the conversations that we've had in the past, ideally, we would move the cars to the Deauville Beach lot that are permitted parking, not direct revenue parking. We would create drop-off areas at the end of the streets like Oak and Park for people to drop things off so they can cart all their stuff to the beach. Ideally, again, the street would be widened to incorporate the gravel shoulders on the west side of the road and then recenter the middle of the road stripe. Then there could be bike lanes on both sides of the street. That's the perfect solution, but that requires money.
Well, probably not as much money as building a boardwalk down on the land. But
I'm really reluctant to mess with the dunes. I just think as soon as you disturb the dunes, you're getting the eco situations that aren't appropriate. But that's just me.
That was my thoughts on that are being concerned about would they let us even disturb the dunes, how important they are. But secondly, I do like the idea of somehow having a walkway from Deauville Beach into town. I think if we could better use Deauville Beach parking, and if at the end of the parking lot there, if there were a way.
You froze.
Donna just went. One of the things, Pat, while Donna's rebooting, this summer I did notice one issue, and that is that as the Deauville Beach cars stacked up onto Ocean Drive to turn right into the parking lot, they completely blocked the bike lane, forcing the cyclists out into the middle of the road. And not everyone is being careful when they move into the middle of the roadway. So that was one thing I noticed that potentially could be a problem if we channel more cars into Deauville Beach lot.
Yeah, I wonder, is that something that DelDOT would have to be involved with too? I don't know.
Well, if we had a little bit of a turnoff lane into the parking lot, that would be ideal.
One thing I thought about, Pat, in terms of, the process here is, because it is an expense, but it looks like the best way to go about getting that approved is to do it in stages, where the first year you do a feasibility study and a design, which is obviously a lot less for the budget than the actual construction of it. And then all these questions can be answered and studied by someone who's working on a design for us. And I don't think the cost of that is huge. But at least it gets us going on it,
Right.
It moves it from discussion to plan.
Right. No, I agree that's a good idea. And, as we do every year, if there's streets that are paved, there's $450,000 allotted. And
Yeah.
so we could push to have Surf Street be one of those. So
It already was this year, wasn't it? Part of it? Or, wait a minute, I'm thinking, I thought part of it was actually done this year, but I could be wrong.
Surf Avenue, I
Yeah,
bet,
that's not the time.
I don't know,
Yeah,
honestly. But certainly we need to bring that up. I hate to push it off too much because it continues to be a real issue. And I guess we need to explore it further in terms of how we can try to get something going. Donnie,
I'm on a Zoom call with the City of Rehoboth Beach Streets and Transportation Committee.
I'm sorry?
Your TV should be there imminently.
David's talking to somebody else. There he goes. He's on mute.
Oh,
Donna, you're on mute. There you go.
Am I, okay.
Yep.
Well, I just like to reinforce David's idea. I think David, to start with, has an excellent idea about putting at least one bike lane on the east side of Surf, because the room and foregoing the parking there. And secondarily, if possible, when it's to pave, to do extra paving on Surf to make it wider, to add a bike lane on the other side.
well,
So I think those, I would prioritize, we do that and then pursue, a boardwalk between Deauville and.
Well, you're
the
right. It's
existing
not an all or
boardwalk.
nothing. It's not an all or nothing thing. So you're right. I think and phasing it is probably a good idea. I mean, Susan, I get it that having a overall plan is important, but
Yeah.
perhaps if we could approach this one piece of it on the east side just to that might be the thing to do. Chief, you look like you want to say something.
I would just say, just our last meeting, I see Kevin Williams is not on the call, I don't believe, but he did mention that there has been some studies or some planning that's gone into, and I wonder if anybody's had the opportunity to look at that and see what's done, because I think that was in conjunction with one of our city engineers, and I think DelDOT was involved in some of that pre-planning. Again, may not be the perfect, but maybe it's a starting point where people had talked, and I believe Kevin mentioned that last meeting.
Okay, I'll talk to Kevin about that.
Yeah.
Is Surf Avenue a city street or is it a state road?
It's the city, but since it's County Route 300, it runs into the state. I know, guys, probably been 5 or 6 years ago now. We were talking about doing some things down there, and we had DelDOT meet us, and all, especially when you get around Henlopen Avenue, around the corner there, where as it turns, and all. So they were involved and need to be involved, and we also had the city engineer out there at that time too. So it's not 100% clear on me where it ends at, but state is involved in it.
Okay, I wondered about that.
Because
Okay.
certainly they state has Columbia, correct, Chief?
Correct. So it's probably right around there when they get into the shoulder and how the street runs or whatever to the dunes, it gets into the property line of the state.
Okay, so anyway, this, I think, from my perspective, and I think from everyone else's, so I've heard so far, the two things that should be on the top of our list is the crosswalk painting and sharrows and the Surf Avenue bike lane, which we'll move forward on in terms of, I'll get more information. It'll be on our agenda for next time, and it will be on at least the Surf Avenue bike lane will be on the agenda for, I think I've asked the mayor to put it on the workshop
For
agenda.
the workshop, right?
I'm
Okay.
sorry?
For the workshop, right?
Yeah, for the workshop. So we'll
Great,
have some
yeah.
input from city commissioners as well.
Yeah. That's good.
So, yes. Somebody say something? Okay. Let's see, the crosswalks on State Road, by the way, that'll be coming off of our agenda. It is funded. It has been, no one has, from the city commission, has asked it to be removed from the CIP. So that should be moving forward. So I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
That's good.
Something
Hey,
that-
while we're on that, Pat, can I make one comment about Canal, Hickman, and State Road?
Sure.
We've got one silent policeman there now, which is too close to the actual physical intersection. It impedes people turning left from getting an eastbound car, eastbound truck on Canal, turns left on a state road, they turn right into the silent policeman. And the same is true for a car heading south on State, turning east on Hickman. And what I've noticed in the area of Arlington County, Fairfax County, and Montgomery County, near me, all of those are placed 6 to 8 feet back from the actual intersection to give more turning radius for the motor vehicles. There's a single one there now. It would be nice if there were 2, but the objective is to have people be aware of people crossing. So having it a little further off the intersection gives people more notice to slow down.
Okay.
Could it be on the other side of the street? Would that be better, Bruce? David?
Well, the problem at Canal and Hickman and State is that the ADA ramps only are in one direction on the east side of the road. So we've got no ADA compliance on either side of the street when you actually physically cross State. So the silent policemen, I believe, were the solution, because from what I recall in past conversations with Chief Banks and Kevin, is that there's a federal requirement about ADA compliance relative to striping crosswalks.
Right. Yeah, that is true. So the solution, this is an interesting thought, the solution of 2 silent policemen 6 to 8 feet off the intersection on either side. Chief, is that doable, or do you think that that's a good idea from your perspective?
I think it's worthwhile going out there and monitor it. Obviously, Dave's been in there and saw it for the turning radius. And if he's having trouble, I would assume that our fire company would have trouble with the same radius, even though they would knock them down. But with that being said, definitely something we can look at, and I will bring it up to the city manager this week and Bill from the sign shop and Kevin on a discussion and see if we can put 2 and back them up, and I'll report back.
The other thing I've noticed in other jurisdictions is that they're on what I would call small hard rubber sleds. So they actually move if someone hits them. In the past, Chief, you've talked about running over them. Right now, the one we have there is bolted down. The good news is that it does have an effect, and people have been stopping for us when we've been walking across there, which is pleasing.
Yeah. I would definitely recommend still having them bolted down because the ones on the sleds, I said they do start moving. People touch them and move them, or car tires. And if you notice, if you've ever been going through the town of Georgetown, they had it at their crosswalks, and they no longer have them there because it just kept moving so much. So I do think you need something bolted down.
Well, we certainly have the ability to bolt, and if that's better, that's the way we should do it, because either way, they're really good in terms of getting people to pay attention to the pedestrians.
Again, I will report back our next meeting. I will bring it to the city manager's attention.
Thank you.
Yep, excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. We don't have.
Hold on. There's one thing I forgot. So on Ocean Drive, it appears as though the way to get around the ADA ramps, if you ride out that way, you'll see where along the beach side of the roadway, they put in ADA ramps just to meet the federal requirements so they could stripe the road.
Just on one side?
They're just on one, they're there on both sides, but they're just about probably 3 by 5 feet.
Okay.
So they're just the ramps themselves, David, but no sidewalk? They're not
It's
just
a
the
ramp
ramps?
with no sidewalk. Just, it leads to the sand.
Interesting.
But they're there, and now those are striped.
All right, well, I'll definitely take a look at that. We only have 6 minutes left. next time, we'll bring up the shuttle. I know that both Gary and Lydia have a lot to say about that. And so I would ask the committee to be prepared to talk about, what your thoughts are on that. And we'll put that on our agenda to bring up for sure. One thing quickly I want to talk about before we go, that's on our agenda, and before we have any citizen comment, bike sharing. I think that that's a really, with the new dock, I think it would be really nice if we could have bike sharing to start at Grove Park and in other places as well. And I really would think that we could get a grant for that. And I will also say that given where we are with yesterday, with I personally was very happy with the new administration coming in. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure grants out there for us in the future. And I think that we need to really pay attention. I've already brought this up to the city commissioners, and I do know that we have to make sure that we do go through the city commission on any grants that we actually tend to go after. But what do you all just briefly think about the idea of having bike shares?
In Lewis at the Cape May Ferry Terminal, the local bicycle shop has had a station there with rental bikes. I like the idea of bike sharing, but I don't like the idea of taking away revenue from our local merchants.
Exactly. I was going to say the same
Yeah,
thing.
me too.
Yeah.
Ditto.
The only thing I would say about that is there's two types of people who are going to be renting bikes. The people who are already here, okay, and they are staying in hotels or houses or whatever, and they're going to rent bikes from in town. Then, I mean, I guess I'm focused on this because the dock was something that I've been involved in for a long, long time. And my thought of people getting off the water taxi, a way for them to get into town, it seemed to me that it would be nice to have something up there. So people could get on a bike, and they're going to end up going back that way too, to get back on the water taxi.
Well, Pat, I think that's very logical, and it's a good idea. And I think it'd be good to have some kind of bike rental in Grove Park. It wouldn't just be the people with the taxi, but I wonder if a local bike rentals just couldn't add a shop there, add a stand or something, and cool. And it might be helpful to people if they knew they could rent their bike down there at Grove Park and drop it off at one of the other locations in town.
That's an interesting idea from the perspective of, in my head, I think of the folks, you can just put your credit card in and take the bike and go. But maybe you're right. Maybe that we should talk to some listeners about the idea of perhaps using something, city property up there for bike rentals.
We'd have to license to do that. But I think that's a good idea. I mean, I think that's better than trying to take business away from.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, Atlantic Cycle, I'm aware of, has at least 3 different locations already in town. So, and they're all set up. Maybe they would expand and put another one down there on that end of town.
Well, I've always thought, and we're about to run out of time, but I've always thought that the area where Main Street is, if we could move, if Main Street would be okay about moving, that could be used for a variety of purposes there, like a bike shop, like even a kayak rental, but that's another conversation.
Where would they go?
We're about to run out of time, and I know we have to get to citizen comments. So is there anything else, Walter, that you have? Walter, are you there?
I don't see Walter's handset anymore.
Thank you. Yes, I'll make it very quick. Much too much on the agenda for as much as you've talked. Surf Avenue bike lane is a possibility. You need to remember DNREC as you go north from the Henlopen on the right-hand side where the dune comes out. All that's under control of DNREC. This has been done in the past by a couple years ago by Mr. Carter. No, Mr. Palmer. There is a plan out there. The Deauville lot into town path is not a problem. Going as you go northbound on Surf Avenue and turn to go to the bottom of the hill, a right-hand turn lane could be put in there, but the shoulder would have to be beefed up on that. And you need to remember there's 5 fire hydrants. That's infrastructure on the right-hand side of the road that needs to be taken care of. The bike shop is an item that's not on the bike box and not bike shops, and that's not on the agenda, and we shouldn't have to talk about that. Some of the information on Surf Avenue, which is appropriate, is the corner at the Henlopen, and I think Mayor Cooper needs to be involved in that. He knows that the corner at the Henlopen, I believe, is still under state control. Some time ago, we gave up we took control of the streets to get the money, and in the end, I don't know whether we ended up with DelDOT giving the streets, taking the streets back. That's Surf Avenue and Lake Avenue, and the corner at the Henlopen and all the way to Ocean Drive. When you talk about the bike paths going to North Shores, DelDOT takes care of it. It doesn't have to be a concrete sidewalk. It is, they made it wide enough, and DelDOT accepts responsibility and takes care of that. The crosswalks on State Road, and I'll keep this short, there's been no report on initiation of traffic studies. There's been no report on the study from the administration, no documentation here or offered back, I don't think, even to the commissioners. It's not ADA compliant because the crosswalks on the corners have to go to other sidewalks, and there needs to be a design complement. Just too much and not enough time to talk about it and not enough homework to be done to be brought to the meeting, and then you jump to the shuttle, which is stupid. Thank you.
Okay. So as far as next meeting will be in 2 weeks, and I know that our agenda was jam-packed, but I felt that we needed to address what was on the agendas or priorities. And so we're actually, it's a prioritization at this point. I think I have a handle on how we ought to prioritize for next time. So we won't have such a lengthy agenda, but I will still have these other things that have been on the priority list to come up for future agendas. So if
Gary
that's
Glass has his hand up. Do we have time for?
Oh, I didn't see him. Okay, Gary.
Can I just simply say that I'm on the Beach and Boardwalk Committee. This idea of a 1-hour meeting doesn't seem to be efficient. And from my perspective as a citizen, and it might be a turnoff for other citizens, because this is the second meeting I've come to talk about the shuttle and the bike sharing. We don't get to those subjects. And I think if you spent a little bit longer on the days that you could meet 2 or 3 times a week for an hour a meeting, but it takes a lot of time for me to set time aside in my schedule to attend these meetings. Whereas I would much rather, as a citizen, I don't know how other citizens feel, would much rather see a 2-hour meeting and see you get through the material you have and make a bona fide, legitimate contribution to the commissioners' meeting so that projects can, in a timely manner, move through. This way, it seems like we're going to be talking about bike lanes and everything else after this summer and on into 2022. It just seems like it would be better to get things done in a more timely manner. And I think that holds true for all the committee meetings, including the Beach and Boardwalk Committee. So it's just a comment that things just seem like they're getting really bogged down and
Right.
not enough time.
So, Gary, I'll interrupt you really quick.
No, that's fine.
I would suggest that you write an email to the city commissioners saying that, this 1 hour is not enough, that it should be left up to the chair of the committees if they want to have a longer meeting, because I think that an hour is not enough at all.
I'll do that. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
I mean, does everyone feel the same way about this?
Yeah, I don't care. I can go either way. If it's 1 hour more frequently, or if they're 2-hour meetings once a month, that's fine with me. I would just hope on the agenda we could rotate, like things we didn't get to the last meeting, they come to the top of the agenda.
Well, that's kind of what I tried to do.
Yeah, I think that rather than us going through the same items in the same order each time, we get hung up on the things at the top of the agenda.
Right. I did, as I said, I wanted to just the prioritization list. And you all can send me an email back on that. So for next time for the agenda, that now that we've kind of gone through all the items on the priority list, what you all would like to move first, what would you like to see first? And we'll have fewer items. Okay?
Thank
Is that
you.
Okay. So are we down for 2 weeks, Pat?
Yes.
2 weeks?
Yeah, is that fine with everyone?
February
or
the
is it
4th.
Sooner.
Yeah, so that's, wait, let's see when that is.
The 4th.
Before.
And that's 10
Yeah.
o'clock for an hour.
Yes. Well, unless we end up, I'm not opposed to going to like an hour and a half or 2 hours. I mean, I'd like to keep it definitely under 2 hours, but an hour is just way too short.
90 minutes
right.
is what we used to do.
Yeah, 90 minutes is
Yeah.
good. I'd be happy with that.
That'd be good.
Okay, well, we are now at 11:05. They didn't cut us off. I thought they would. But in any case, we'll end the meeting now if that's okay with everyone.
Well, it seems
Duly
like we got
adjourned.
something accomplished.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye,
Okay,
everybody.
bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good seeing you. See you in 2 weeks.